Don't you hate it when you hear that a storm is coming? So naturally, you and your friends have to go on a globe-trotting adventure trying to stop a whiny teen from collecting enough mystical armor to become a god? So do I. But today, on Aging Otakus, we watched Fatal Fury, the motion picture.
Hey everyone, welcome to Aging Otakus, your retro anime podcast. I'm Jorge and I'm here with Eric, and today we're going to be talking about Fatal Fury, the classic anime movie from '94. But before we get to that, we're gonna talk a little bit about what we've been getting into this week. Eric, how have you been in this V2 of our episode?
Our episode take two. No, dude, I'm good. It's just various hardware problems on my end. I appreciate you kind of having patience and dealing with my issues. Other than that, nothing really. I know we touched on it in the episode 1.5 or whatever that what last was, but I started a new job recently, so I haven't had a lot of time to get with the podcast. But now that sort of the onboarding is done and I'm kind of settling into a flow, I've got my time back, so I can start putting more time back into the podcast, thankfully.
Yeah, and just having that weight off your shoulders is great, I'm sure. So that alone, we're and being able to survive in this society is that we live in.
It's always nice.
It's always nice.
I love getting capital for my corporate overlords. But it's weird, dude. It's like because I had such a long time off of work. And then going back into a very, not very corporate, but a corporate structure again, it's boom, imposter syndrome hits. I'm a fraud. This is my writing is terrible. It ran the whole gamut, and I was just anxious for 3 weeks.
Well, and especially with writing, I found when you take time off from it, it does feel like that muscle kind of atrophies a little bit.
100%, dude. Yeah.
There's something about it, even though you wouldn't think. But I guess that's most skills and most talents and jobs and stuff. If you haven't done it for even a little bit.
I was doing a little bit of freelancing here and there, and if listeners don't know, Jorge and I are both copywriters by trade. So yeah, it's I knew that was going to be an issue, especially with such a long time off. So I was making sure that I, kind of was writing as often as I could, in my free time when I wasn't playing Escape from Tarkov. So
yeah, gotta keep active. Good.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, man. Other than that, so my thing for the week, just kind of buying a lot of stuff for my home office now that I do have a job to present myself in an office setting. So I've been doing a lot of prints, a lot of I bought some anime figures because you got to show your little flair. So my webcam when I'm doing meetings now, you'll see my little Josuke figurine from JoJo, and I've got a cool Kamen Rider model kit that I built a while back. So
Nice.
It's kind of fleshing out the home office.
It's funny you bring that up because this weekend I put up a bit of a gallery wall in my home office as well.
Oh, did you? Okay.
So I've got a bunch of prints. I've got some shelves now that I haven't quite laid everything out, but I've got room for my books and my different toys and models and stuff. But the gallery wall is definitely up, and I've gotten a few comments on it throughout the workday throughout the work
wall,
week so far. I got some cool stuff. I got this really cool Ghost Rider print where it's two layers. It's a lithograph, or it's not a print. It's a lithograph, and it's two layers. And the top layer is one of Marvel's Evel Knievel comics, and underneath it, this Ghost Rider comic is burning through it, and it looks the front shiny side looks all nice and squeaky clean, and then on the underneath side there's this dark sinister bit that's burning through. It looks really cool, and then it has a little Ghost Rider in the corner where they'd put their different characters featured in the issue, and he's welcome to hell. So
yeah,
it's pretty rad. And I got some Gatchaman prints that I got these at Comic-Con almost 10 years ago from comic book artist Cliff Chiang did them in his style. He's really big on doing anime characters, but as like more like a Western style, and vice versa, like Western DC and Marvel superheroes, but as like tokusatsu heroes.
Really? I'm very into that.
Oh, it's really cool stuff.
Text me a pic of that, bro. I want to see that.
Oh yeah. The Gotcha Man ones are really cool, but I'll gather up some of that stuff. I'll send them to you and we can put those in the notes.
Yeah, dude, I love Battle for the Planets.
We might have to look into that one.
I mean, maybe. Future. I mean, that in a future episode.
It was a battle and there were planets.
Like there always are. Other than that, man, like what have you been getting into this week?
So I've been listening to this podcast lately, and I think it's very appropriate to recommend for this fighting game themed episode. But it's called Our Fake History, and so what he does is explores taken for granted or like accepted parts of history that were either like outright fake or partially fake. So for instance, in this episode I'm going to recommend, or it's a series of episodes that I'm going to recommend, he talks about the fake history of martial arts and conversely the history of fake martial arts. And so, you know, a lot of cool, he gets into a lot of cool research about the non-truth perhaps of Kung Fu, you know, having this like background in Zen Buddhism and having like originated from like a spiritual element versus being a really good way to kick butt, which is like plenty good, you know, like that's plenty of a good justification. In addition to talking about things like those comic book ads for the Touch of Death, the
Dim Mak,
the Dim Mak with Count Dante.
God.
So cool. With amazing facial hair, that man. And there, I mean, there's even like talk of like rival dojos beating the crap out of each other in like Chicago streets. It's a really cool series of like it's like 2 episodes and like an appendix episode, I want to say. So highly recommend if you're into any of the words I just mentioned. Yeah. History, martial arts, like any of that. Really cool series overall.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I definitely check that out. I mean, dojo busting is like it's not a huge thing anymore, but I mean, me coming from like a background of like Brazilian jiu-jitsu and like boxing and stuff, like I know that definitely like early 2000s and like late 90s, like dojo busting was like still a thing. And yeah, I mean, you've seen videos of it like at like Gracie schools in like California, like, you know, a random like karate guy or a judo guy would come in and try to like, you know, fuck with them, and then they just kind of videotape them kicking somebody's ass. So yeah, man, it was like it's real. And it's like, I mean, I think that it kind of comes from the fact that like because your income is tied to your martial art, it's sort of like you kind of strive to like legitimize it. And I mean, there's no really better way to legitimize it than by like beating up another martial artist, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the business of kicking ass, like
business is good.
Yeah, you know, you better have a good quarter of ass kicking, or else you're gonna get the pink slip. So
exactly, like you're the IRS giving you the pink slip.
We gotta audit your.
Or was it the layoff?
Quarterly.
What was his move? Do you remember him?
Oh God, was it the pink slip?
Was it it was the pink slip or the write-off? I don't remember.
The right. I love that he came to WCW as VK Wall Street. Like all his gimmicks are tied to
that
like
could come back now.
Money guy you don't like.
Yeah,
it's so good. We got to bring back that
VK
level
Wall Street.
Of gimmick. Yeah,
it's so stupid.
It's so dumb. I think it was like Michael Wall Street in New Japan at the time, but in WCW he was VK Wall Street. I think because of like Vincent K. McMahon. Like,
oh God,
that's so
great.
dumb.
I didn't know that he had that second life in WCW. Crazy.
Yeah,
but that's cool, dude. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely listen to that podcast. I think I'm gonna subscribe to it right now because I just don't want to miss that. I love like weird martial arts stuff like that. So yeah, I'm totally into that.
Oh yeah, Sam. And I think I low key want to hear on one of these episodes them just going like, oh no, yeah, the Hadouken's real.
Oh yeah, of course.
There's a little part of me that's just holding out for that.
Yeah, you never thrown a fireball at somebody?
You're missing out, man.
Yeah.
Other than that, I did have a fun little project this weekend. I put together a Raspberry Pi for an emulation box, and
hell yeah.
for my legally backed up Linux
Yes, these are all games
ISOs
that you
and
own in physical form. Correct.
my vast collection of SNES games that I've backed up, and it's it's been a really fun project, and it's cool. Like I don't have a lot of the hardware anymore. So it's nice to have all of it in
of course, yeah, one little box.
Tiny little pack of cards, basically. Yeah, I can't. The instructions are out there. It does take a little bit of tweaking. You're going to run into like little issues. You might have to Google around a little bit, but it probably took me less than 2 evenings to get up and running and not really have any significant issues anymore. And now it's just the biggest problem I have is just curating what I even have on there, because I don't like scrolling through a million menus because it just makes me indecisive. So I've been playing a little bit of ActRaiser and a couple other classics from back in the day.
Oh, nice, man. Yeah, I before I got my PS5 earlier in the year, I was trying to get what's called a Retroid Pocket 2. Which is essentially like it's a handheld emulation system that runs off of the Android system, and it looks like the build is really good, so it looks like it's designed to be like a Game Boy, so it looks very much like a Nintendo product. Obviously it's not like a straight up copy of it, but
those are nice.
These, huh?
Yeah, those are nicely built. I've seen a couple of pictures.
Yeah, I have the one where it looks like it's got the old Game Boy DMG 001 colorway.
Oh.
And it's pretty good, man. I mean, like it fits in your hand. It cost me $80, and you can play everything up to some Dreamcast games. Anything below that, like PlayStation 1 and maybe I think Saturn, runs like perfect. So, yeah, man, emulation's where it's at. I don't blame you for getting that Raspberry Pi going.
Have you ever heard of Analog? The company Analog?
Oh yeah, they make like the wooden game systems and stuff, right? They're really like high end.
I don't know if they might make a wood one. The ones I know of are just really like shiny. They're really like minimalist and shiny.
Oh wait, no. You know what? You're right. I have heard of it. It's like they came out with like a Game Boy a while back that I really was like wanting to get because it was like $250 or something. But
I was very tempted. Yeah, it plays all the cartridges, and you put add-ons to play other portable games.
Oh yeah, like they had the little drop-in where you could play like Neo Geo games.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw that. I was ready to spend some money on that, but then I bought that Retroid.
Yeah, so they make some beautiful retro consoles that they use the FPGA technology to fully. I mean, these things to your TV and to the cartridge you're plugging in effectively are a Super Nintendo, except in a tinier package and with much nicer industrial design and HDMI and all that. Yeah. So these things are really cool. Really, they're kind of pricey for what you get, but I mean it's like a beautiful product. So I mean
that's like a statement piece.
Yes. Yeah. Those are mighty tempting. So
man. Tax returns coming in.
Hey man, where's my stimmy?
Biden, where's my stimmy, you bastard? Anyways, yeah, man. I mean, the media that I've brought this week is a YouTube channel called SNES Drunk. So I think kind of just playing into your project for this week. SNES Drunk is a YouTuber who, like his name implies, he gets drunk and he plays video games. That's not really the main portion of his stuff, but that's kind of what he does when he streams. I think he kind of rose to prominence when he kind of was just working his regular job, but what he did was he created this YouTube channel to essentially compile 3 hours worth of like, Super NES music to relax to, just so he could listen to it while he's at work. And those videos just blew up because it's such a well curated library of Super NES songs. And like I was telling you before we were recording, one of the videos starts off with the Waterworld soundtrack, which is the Kevin Costner terrible movie from the 90s, But if you listen to this soundtrack on the Super NES, it's like immaculate. Like it is such a good like ambient piece of music. It's like I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but it's very good. He also does stuff where he will kind of review old games for the Super NES that maybe like you might have missed if you're just sort of kind of paying attention to like the whatever's on the top 10 of like everyone's guides. So he'll kind of be like, hey, is Pit Fighter worth playing now, or is you know
Did it become worth playing?
Yeah.
Did it somehow?
Yeah. So he's somebody that I'll watch every now and then because his videos are very short and they're very easy to digest. And the man's fucking music mixes for the Super Nintendo are just great. There's so many gems, like stuff from like the SimCity game for the SNES that you probably have never played.
Oh, great set. The first one, great soundtrack. I never played 2000, but the first SimCity on the SNES that had a wonderful soundtrack. Very relaxing. Probably very good workday. Oh, I need to pull this guy up.
I will. I'll link it and I'll send it to you later. He is great. I watch him all the time. If you're any kind of person who loves like retro game music, check out SNES Drunk because the man knows exactly what he's talking about.
I feel like that era was that perfect balance in between, the chiptune, the earlier chiptune era where you were really limited, so you had to make really good use of what you had. But you have, I think the SNES sound hardware was like sample based, so you could have some pretty good audio quality considering what you're working with. And so it's like a really nice balance of like, we're not quite good enough to just like dump whatever music we can record on here, but we do have some quality we can play around with. So let's make the most out of everything. So I do have a really special soft spot. I feel like the NES got a lot of like nostalgia love. Like
it was very in vogue for most of the 2000s.
But I feel like the SNES was like light years ahead in terms of like what deserved to be beloved. Not that it needs more love than it gets, because it does. People. It's not lacking love, but
yeah. Oh, speaking of like chiptune, like dude, are you gonna get that Scott Pilgrim physical release?
Oh, I saw that announcement and I haven't thought of it since, so I should probably hop on that because
I'm thinking about
that was a fun one. That was the Xbox Live Arcade game originally, right?
Exactly, yeah, and it's got that whole soundtrack by like Anamanaguchi, and it's very good. So I'm thinking about picking it up too.
Yeah, that's a great beat 'em up. So today we're going to be talking about Fatal Fury, the 1994 anime produced by Studio Comet. So it's based on the SNK video game series that started in 1991. That I don't know. It was kind of like a spin-off or a sequel to Art of Fighting, or was it just its own thing? I mean, I know they all crossed over eventually, but
yeah. So Art of Fighting, I think, was the predecessor. You had one of the main guys from Street Fighter from Capcom leave and get a job at SNK, and I think he created I think he was the guy that made Art of Fighting. But I mean, if you looked at the original Art of Fighting, like it's literally like it's just like it's a blatant steal, which is why if you go back and you see like a character like Dan is clearly Rio's. I should say Rio. Dan is Rio, but with Robert's head on his body. So it's sort of like they were playing a game of the dozens like back in the day with Capcom and SNK. But Art of Fighting, it takes place in Southtown, which is where Fatal Fury takes place, and the main boss of Art of Fighting is a young Geese Howard, who later becomes the crime boss of that city, and who we'll see in. You see him a little bit in this movie, but he's definitely much more present in the previous two OVAs.
Okay, so it's a pretty rich universe of.
It's a very rich and deep universe
of fighters,
like Lord of the Rings.
See, Eric's the fighting game guy amongst two of us. I've played Street Fighter, but and I've played a couple other games here and there. But SNK has always been a blind spot, other than the beloved Metal Slug machine at the convenience store near my school when I was growing up. So
I mean, it's strange that so you've never played any of the King of Fighters, right? Or have you?
I have, but not enough to really like have retained anything. One of them was on like PSN several years ago, maybe on PS3 back then.
Okay. Because I mean, if you like Metal Slug, you know that like essentially there's like a whole team in King of Fighters of pretty much they're supposed to be like Metal Slug characters, pretty much.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up. I'll have to whichever game that is. I'll have to try out.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm a fighting game guy. I haven't been so much anymore, but I mean, when I was younger in my early 20s, I would definitely like be part of the local Las Vegas fighting game community. So I'd go to people's houses and play video games there, or we'd go to Gemini Arcade Palace and do some casuals. So shout out to the Las Vegas fighting game community, all 12 of you.
R.I.P. Gemini Arcade Palace. That was
man.
That was a great spot.
It sucks because like Capcom is so popular in the U.S. And it does obviously because it's such a small niche kind of game genre that SNK doesn't get the love it deserves because SNK's characters are so like they're so unique and they're so well designed, and it sucks because like I feel like these characters are really really interesting compared to like the kind of cookie cutter Capcom characters you get with Street Fighter and the like.
Yeah, I wonder if having Mortal Kombat in the mix kind of
oh yeah
took that spot. You're either a Capcom guy or a Midway guy, and no room for poor SNK.
No, I guess not.
But yeah, so the movie we're gonna be talking about, it was actually preceded by 2 TV specials that kind of serve as the like lead in to this film, or at least they take place earlier in the story, and I believe to my understanding they're more in line with the games, whereas this film is more of a like original fleshed out piece versus an adaptation.
Yeah, I mean essentially the first 2 OVAs are, I mean they're pretty much just retellings of the Fatal Fury games. Like they all have like the main boss is Geese in the first one, and in the second one the main bad guy is Wolfgang Krauser, which kind of fall in line with the games. With this one it's just a whole new cast of villains. So it's kind of like it's interesting that they kind of chose to go that route rather than like stick with fan favorites or maybe even do some crossover with other SNK stuff. But I loved this movie as a kid, so I'm not complaining about it. Did you watch the previous 2 OVAs?
No, I haven't watched the previous OVAs. I had seen this one in some form on Sci-Fi Channel, but I hadn't seen the previous 2. So that might be something I'd be interested in going back to after watching this one, and maybe just get a little more like context for everything.
Yeah, I'll make you watch those.
gonna make this Capcom boy suffer a little.
I mean, hey, Capcom sucks right now, so I mean they've sucked for a while.
No, yeah, not their like non-fighting game stuff.
Oh yeah, no, the Resident Evil 2 remake.
Every other department of theirs is like having a golden age, but
that's a good point. Like it really is. So.
Yeah, I thought speaking to your point earlier about like the wealth of characters and all that, they were actually originally going to have some cameos by Art of Fighting characters, but they just nixed them. I don't know, budget, time constraints, story constraints.
Interesting.
They never bothered. But it was also, I thought this was great. It was directed by Masami Obari. He worked on a lot of classic 80s anime, mostly like mecha sci-fi kind of shows, and probably best known, like he'd done 2 Bubblegum Crisis episodes he directed. So very different from what we got here.
Right.
Going from like Dankuga, like Bubblegum Crisis to Fatal Fury. So I mean, kind of cool.
Well, there are 2 sides to Masami Obari, Jorge. There's the mecha, well designed, unique mecha style, and there's the horny style, which I think we get a lot of here. Masami Obari, he has done like hentai, and he's done art direction for hentai. So, it's I I think his characters kind of all have that same look about them. Like it's just, different hair, but it's the same body. Um,
Like
but I
the
don't know what it
elongated
is.
triangle look.
Yeah, exactly. It's, handsome man with blonde hair, handsome man with black hair, handsome man, whatever. Um, I don't know what it is though, because I know it's kind of generic, but for some reason I think it's just probably because I developed into a young man at the time when I watched a lot of Masami Obari stuff. I really like his characters. It's a good art style to me, even though I know it's kind of generic at times. So I don't know.
Now I do, like speaking to the legacy of like the act of the show itself or the movie itself, rather, like, um, it was on Sci-Fi. It felt like just like a lot, like constantly.
Yeah.
It was definitely on my like VHS tape of anime that I recorded off of Sci-Fi.
The 8-hour extended play tapes.
It looked like shit
Yeah.
by the time I got to the end of it. Yeah, I definitely had my VHS tape that I wore out. I think I might have mentioned it in a previous episode of like Galaxy Express 39 and Fatal Fury and Beautiful Dreamer and like just random sci-fi stuff. But yeah,
Did you have any episodes of Iria Zaram on there?
I probably did. I haven't
Yeah.
I haven't thought about her in a minute, but yeah.
I went back and watched that not too recently, and or pretty recently, and we should do an episode on it because I got some
You got thoughts?
some reservations on it. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
okay. Hey,
yeah.
add it to the list.
Yeah. So then clearly you have watched this before. Yeah, man. It was in heavy rotation for me as well. I think this was one of my go-to like blockbuster rentals. And I eventually bought it on VHS. Yeah, man. Like whenever I'd go to Blockbuster and if there's an anime that I wanted to watch that wasn't available, and this is always just like my traditional go-to. Like if there was something new that I hadn't seen, but there wasn't in stock, I would definitely just fall back on Fatal Fury the motion picture.
Yeah, growing up, I had a friend who lived within walking distance of the Hollywood Video in town, and so it would always, like, anytime it would be like we'd be hanging out at his place, like it would be anime time for sure. So this also might have been in that rotation too, in the Hollywood Video rotation at some point. Because again, like I watched this, I didn't remember a lot of it, but there's definitely a scene or two that we'll get to that are etched in my mind.
Yeah. So the movie opens in Alexandria, Egypt, where there seems to be sort of like an excavation going on. A lot of dudes digging. It kind of gets you like feelings of and I think we talked about this on our previous recording of it, that this movie, especially this part, feels a lot like Indiana Jones. So yeah, we kind of get like a close up of a scorpion coming in, and someone shoots it with a flamethrower. It's all very classic pulp adventure-y. So what we see is one of these archaeologists is looking for something, or they've unearthed something called the Armor of Mars, and as it gets excavated, they're trying to reach the surface because they're really deep underground, and all of a sudden the excavation crew kind of falls under attack of this huge buff guy. And it looks like, I mean, he's like a JoJo character. He's very like kind of tribal inspired, but he's also like 8 feet tall and jacked.
Yeah, one of many like long triangular shaped people in this work.
Yeah, he wrecks this crew. Like he does the whole Raditz thing, and he some guy shoots a gun at him and he catches it with his fingers. It's sort of like a Raditz / like Kenshiro thing. Because he does like the 2-finger open-handed catch. Do you remember that, where you kind of would catch an arrow and flip it back?
Flicks it right back.
Yeah, and so essentially, he's killing this crew, and then the guy who went to get the original armor piece at the bottom of the excavation crew finally comes up, and he sees that his whole crew has been attacked, and he tries to hightail it out of there because he thinks that these people are treasure hunters, and they're trying to get the treasure from him. And as he is trying to escape, he is kind of beset upon him. Like the big armor guy has a couple of accomplices with him. He's got a ninja girl with one pant leg, and he's got a pretty feather boy. They, eventually they get the better of this poor archaeologist, and they see that their leader is in the middle of this road, and he blasts the guy's car, and afterwards he takes that armor piece and puts it on. We see that once he puts this armor on, it goes from just being a classic piece of armor to kind of becoming this weird, like, Guyver-esque kind of metal armor piece that kind of just becomes one with that guy's body, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a cool little, like, animation to it. Yeah.
The animation in this, we'll talk about it later. It's very good though, on the whole.
Largely, yep.
Yeah. And so after he gets this armor piece, he jumps super high in the air, announces that he's going to become a god because he needs to get he's got 3 pieces of this armor, but there's 6. And once he gets all 6, he's going to become a god. And it's here that we get the transition over to our hero, Terry Bogard, walking with his Ryu Street Fighter gym bag, and says, a storm is coming. And title card. What did you think of this cold intro? Or this cold intro?
It stuck me in a bit. Like it definitely does give off those like 80s action adventure movie vibes with the dig and with everything that's going on. And then that jump cut, that sudden cut to Terry, and he's like, a storm is coming, just kind of like brought us like back down to earth. I'm like, oh yeah, this is just a very like action, like shonen fighting anime formula.
Yeah, like, don't get your hopes up. This isn't like an Oscar or anything. Terry Bogard's still here.
There's still a storm coming.
Yeah. So we then transition over to a really kind of a really weird, it's a really cool scene. It's all in black and white, and you see kind of Joe Higashi, and he's kind of in the zone, and he's got people talking to him, but he's drowning it all out. He's trying to focus, and there's a match going on, and that's kind of what he's getting ready for. He's like backstage at like a UFC fight essentially, and we get a close up of a shirt that says milk on it with a big old pair of anime titties.
Any other word? It could have been any other word.
I mean, no, it could only be one word. That's, I mean, if it's Masami Obari, it can be one word. So yeah, it's really somber until Joe does like a flip over the top rope, and he is, Joe in the games and in the animes, he's a very like loud, braggadocious character. He's very likable, and so it's him in the zone. He's focusing, but when the lights are on, it's like, I'm Joe Higashi. I'm like I'm an entertainer, and that's kind of what he's doing here. And we find out obviously that the shirt lady with the milk on it is Mai Shiranui, who is what did they call her in the trailer for this? It was a independent dual suspension ninja girl. Which whoever was doing the copy on that.
We need to do a whole thing about like anime trailers and the little ads that played before.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they were selling you. They were selling you violence, and they were selling you jiggly anime titties.
Yeah. I mean, what doesn't sell you that?
Yeah. I mean, it was the 90s. It sells you beer. It sells you, yeah.
Milk and beer.
Yeah, I love milk and beer. So the fight starts, and we see that Joe is fighting Hua Jai, who's another character from the SNK games, who is also like the other Muay Thai fighter. But he's cool because he drinks alcohol and stuff while he fights. Hua Jai looks like he's kind of getting the upper hand on him, and Mai's kind of concerned because in the previous anime, which this is a continuation of, Joe was pretty much hospitalized like heavily with the fight with the previous boss, Krauser, because he was trying to, we'll get into it in the next episode, but Joe ends up in the hospital, and so Mai's kind of concerned, like, hey, you don't think it's because of the injuries from Krauser that he's kind of missed a step here? And Andy, the person next to her, is saying like, no, he's just getting warmed up. And as soon as that's said, Joe delivers a flying knee right to Huajai's face and knocks him out cold. Afterwards, we just fast forward to Joe's kind of victory, and he is just seen by this woman who gives him these flowers that he's kind of nervous, and he's kind of like, oh, I can't believe you're really her. And I think you had something that you mentioned about that, Jorge, is that right?
Yeah, so it's a real life singer and voice actress that is I mean the joke doesn't quite translate well in the dub, which is what we watched because of that. Like, you wouldn't recognize her. But he's like, he's like, oh, is it really her? Like, is it really you?
So Maya and Andy are backstage and they're congratulating him, and they say that they're waiting on Terry, who, if you don't know, Terry is sort of like a Ryu type. He's the main character of the series, but he's like that kind of wandering vagabond kind of archetype. So, he's always just kind of aloof. He's always just looking for the next fight. What did you think of this scene, Jorge? Did you like the fight scene? Did you like the little cold intro?
I liked the fight. I liked how it introduced us to Joe. I get who Joe is even after just seeing this scene. Like, his little leap over the top rope as he's entering, and it was very like pro wrestler at the Royal Rumble making his comeback after being injured for a year or something. Like, it was a very hype. So it's fun little intro of things to come.
That's good. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, Joe. I think Joe's one of my favorite characters from the SNK universe, just because he's like, I like Muay Thai, but also like this guy's just really likable.
He's hot blooded.
So we get the transition once they mention Terry to Neo Geo Land, where it's a little Japanese arcade where it's not a little, it's gigantic.
Oh yeah, they're huge. Well, I don't think they exist anymore, but they were huge.
Yeah, they just closed down the Sega one. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That's sad, man. Arcades, yeah. COVID. Sorry, I didn't feel like saying COVID like I'm saying Kobe. It's not really appropriate.
I was gonna say, even I recognize that
COVID.
Tone. COVID.
So as we see Terry's kind of just goofing off at Neo Geo Land, there's a woman running down the street, being followed by ninjas on a rooftop, just jumping from building to building. And eventually she tries to find a sanctuary in Neo Geo Land, where she runs into Terry. And it's then that the ninjas fall through the ceiling and attack her, or attempt to, until they're kind of interrupted by Terry. And so it's kind of here. And I mentioned this in the last recording, but I bought the Blu-ray version of it, and I don't know if it was just a bad translation from the Blu-ray, trying to up the quality of it, where the quality of this fight scene is kind of bad, or if that's just the way it always was and I just don't remember it. But the fight scene here is kind of weird because Terry's constantly off model, and the fighting just isn't fluid. It's just kind of choppy. So I was kind of concerned if this would kind of continue on throughout the movie, that I'm like, oh no, is Fatal Fury the movie bad now that I'm watching it with a critical eye?
Yeah, it's always scary when something might secretly have been bad all along that you liked.
Yeah, and then I look like an idiot for the last 20 years.
I did catch a little bit of the choppiness, and the fluidity had definitely dropped a bit, but I didn't really see as much of the off model stuff, but I might have just not been looking at that particular element.
Yeah, but I mean, eventually, the movie, or the fight scene is good. It's fine. You get what you want. You want Terry to do a couple of his moves, so he does a crack shot. And you kind of see that he breaks the mask that they're wearing, which kind of has this weird kind of chemical fluid in it. Now, Jorge, have you heard because Terry is kind of famous for his very bad English dubbed voices in the SNK games. Because all of his, obviously these are Japanese games, but all of Terry's moves, because he's the most American person in the world, all of Terry's moves are all spoken in English. So, you know, it's very famous, like clips of him just saying things like Buster Wolf or like Crack Shot or Burn Knuckle. Have you heard any of him? And have you heard him talk in any kind of fighting games?
I've only really heard him in Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. I've probably heard him other times, and it just not often enough to really for it to have made an impact or anything. But it was kind of weird to just hear another voice saying, you know, like Crack Shot instead of the Smash Brothers, which I'm assuming is they never dubbed it over into English just from how it sounds.
No, it's still a Japanese person saying English words.
He's going
it's
like
great.
Crack Shoot.
Yeah,
a lot of emphasis on the shoot part. Yeah, so it was a little weird to have an entirely different voice and kind of enunciation, but
yeah.
It has its charm in the game. The Japanese voice actor, like,
it's so good. Like I hope that they never, like, when they were talking about releasing Terry, I was like, man, I hope they don't put like an English voice actor for his voice. Like, it's all just gonna be in Japanese dubbed or Japanese English. It's it's so near and dear to me.
I don't trust. I mean, I trust Nintendo in other ways, but I wouldn't trust Nintendo with another person's properties to, you know, another company's properties to like find a perfect enough voice for English, you know.
That's, I mean, yeah, they did. Sephiroth is all Japanese too, right?
Yeah, I think Sephiroth and
they didn't give Lance Bass the call, man. That sucks.
So a little bit later, the girl from earlier at the Neo Geo Land arrives at this big party reception, and she's asking for Terry. And meanwhile, we see Kim chatting with Joe, and Kim, who's also a playable character, right?
Kim Kaf-Wan is a paragon of truth and justice in the SNK universe.
It's good to know.
I mean, he's kind of a cop, which isn't great, but you know.
AKAB, all Kims are bastards. So his kid is kind of, just like mad dogging Andy, who is like kind of annoyed by that. He's kind of irked. He's a little nervous, and he's getting creepy kid vibes from the kid. I mean, I don't blame him. And Mai just thinks like the kid's adorable, and he thinks the whole situation's kind of like funny and cute. Which is overall basically their dynamic. Like, like Andy is much more serious, and Mai is a little more lighthearted. Terry finally shows up though at the reception, and reconnects with everyone. But suddenly there's a scream, and of course now it's this party that's getting attacked. And as Terry gets ready to bust some more heads, Kim tells him basically to let him handle this because he wants his son to see that his dad can handle a situation. He wants to show his son, you know, a positive male role model.
Does he handle that situation, Jorge?
Well,
do you think he handled it?
I'll tell you a situation he handled. He handled the changing of his uniform very well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, obviously he's like Superman. He's wearing it underneath his regular suit.
Yeah, he does the if you know Yakuza, the Yakuza series, he does the like practically the like one hand pull and like whole other outfit underneath. And so Kim leaps into action, basically just instantly gets thrown aside. Terry has to keep Joe from jumping into the fray because
yeah, you're right.
Because of Kim's kids are watching, but they're also encouraging him. They're also encouraging Kim to fight on, and that kind of like.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you because like.
Yeah.
Joe is 100% right. He should have butted in. I don't care if his kids are watching. You're watching your father get CTE because he's getting his shit rocked.
His lifespan has been significantly decreased by that.
Yeah,
blow.
It's like, oh yeah, you watched your dad beat this guy, but now he's missing all of his teeth.
He's not going to make it to your college graduation, kid.
No, he is not.
You're lucky if he makes it to high school.
Yeah, no, Kim. I always had a problem with this scene because it's like, it's supposed to be like cool, and Terry's like, look at his kid's eyes, and it's like, no, dude, help your friend here.
There's some toxic masculinity at play.
Yeah. Toxic masculinity in a fighting game anime?
What?
But yeah, sorry, make your point.
No, you nailed it right there. Yeah, so they but somehow the power of family bonds or something like pushes Kim to take out the masked assailant. So with that taken care of, briefly, the girl from earlier meets up with Terry again, and her name's Sulia, and so she explains that she's been looking for him ever since he defeated Wolfgang Krauser in the previous installments of the story, and basically explains that she needs help to stop the armor of Mars from earlier from being fully gathered together. And so Terry, being the protagonist that he is, accepts this offer, and Andy
No
Mayan,
questions asked.
No, he's like, he has that whole like, oh, it's another new challenge like mentality of every like fighting game protagonist.
Yeah.
And so he accepts that offer, and Andy, Mai, and Joe decide to tag along too and go on this adventure. And so we get our first like globetrotting bit, which this is like one of my favorite elements of this movie for sure, is all the globetrotting and the like trying to piece together where the armor is.
I think it's missing everything except for it's missing that little the dotted line following a map from place to place.
Yes, please, they remaster this. We need that. So they're going to Rhodes, the island in the Mediterranean, and we get this exposition dump about Alexander the Great's backstory, and so it turns out he was actually defeated at one point by a king of Rhodes, whose name was Gaudamus.
It's a traditional Rhodian name.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it could be Latin. Like that's a few.
Let's break this down.
Few centuries early. So Alexander's generals, in revenge for that military defeat, they actually burned him to death, but his armor survived intact, and it came to life, and it took the form of the god of war Mars, and managed to destroy a city like on its own. And so these four strangers defeated him and buried the armor in stone and spread it throughout Alexander's empire to keep it from ever coming back together again. But Sulia and her brother Laucorn, they are descendants of Gaudamus, and descendants of Gaudamus are basically, they're forced to roam the earth but if one of them gathers the armor and puts it on, they would gain the powers of a god. And right. Laucorn, the fella from earlier with the armor, has already assembled half of it, so he's halfway there.
Yeah, and to be fair, Laucorn and Sulia are doing a lot of roaming in this movie.
Yes,
they're roaming all over the place.
Yes, I hope they have international calling on their.
They got flight
plans.
Points. Yeah,
get those miles. So, arriving in Rhodes, they approach this cave that another like tomb cave like complex kind of thing, and as they're exploring, Terry actually gets injured by a minor cave-in incident, but Sulia manages to heal him magically, revealing that she has some powers. And so as they continue in this cave complex, we get some cool like Raiders of the Lost Ark shit happening as Sulia places her pendant that she's wearing into this pedestal, and that in turn reveals a pathway through a waterfall, which in turn reveals a tomb behind the waterfall. This is very like different genre, but this is definitely very video gamey. Like there's always something behind the waterfall. I don't trust a waterfall that doesn't have anything behind it.
Yeah, it's bullshit. I don't. You know what? If there's got to be a cave behind it. That's the whole reason the waterfall's there. Any
game without something behind the waterfall gets a 0 out of 0 in my book.
It's a 0. That's just bad game design. To be frank.
Truly.
Yeah.
And so one thing like the different fighters, the characters notice as they're in this complex in the tomb is like almost styled like those Grecian vase paintings or like hieroglyphics and such.
Yeah, for sure.
They notice that like the techniques that they use, their different like special fighting moves, are inscribed on the walls. And so the implication there being that like these are like ancient techniques that were known to those people from around the world. And so there's also a map, and it shows the locations of all but one of the armor pieces. And so they decided to split into two different groups to chase down this armor. And so they're going to go to Antioch in Turkey and Baghdad in Iraq. And so we change scenes over to Antioch, and we see Laucorn talking to the mayor about like a recent investment he's made in the city, but it's basically just like a distraction from their real concerns. And as they split up and they leave, the mayor's leaving, and they're going to the rest of their to do the rest of their plotting for the day. It's such a great form of excess here, but I mean, this is just like a fancy modern office building, and then Laucorn just kind of turns a corner and he's got this like throne room.
Yeah. Do you think that he moved the throne room or the throne into that office, or do you think the office came with that throne?
There needs to be a spin-off about the planning of this throne room. Like
it's so over the top and campy that it's like it doesn't make any sense. It's like Laucorn, like what even is this room?
I'm just picturing, if this was like today, I'm just picturing like you're trying to, you're at your computer toucher job at work at the office, and you're trying to schedule a meeting, and it's like, oh crap, throne room B is booked for 3 p.m. But we got throne room C. I can never get
into throne room B. Merchandising is always taking it up.
They always run late with their meetings.
Yeah, you got the people just waiting outside, just like waving politely, but they're just like, get the fuck out of there.
Someone's like waving their scepter. Like, come on.
I need the throne.
But so they're in this throne room, and they so basically they're aware of Sulia and her movements, and so they themselves also split up into two groups to intercept Sulia, and so the plot thickens. Yeah,
we then get a scene change to Joe and Terry and Sulia in Turkey. And as they're kind of getting settled into this hotel, Terry is paying the bellboy, and he kind of drops this picture out of his back pocket, and Sulia picks it up, and he just very nonchalantly is like, "Oh, thanks, appreciate that." But Sulia is kind of thirsty, so she's like, "I need to know what this lady's all about." And later that night, they're kind of having dinner, and Joe's trying to get Terry to go pro because he's like a good fighter. I mean, I would argue that if Terry's defeating giant energy gods, he's probably the best fighter in the world. But Joe's like, yeah, you're a pretty good fighter. You should go pro. And he kind of just wants he kind of wants Terry to kind of cast aside this hermit life and, just kind of take care of himself and kind of have like reliable, he wants him to put down roots. And Terry hits him with the whole like, money can't buy love, Joe. And that's when Sulia brings up the girl in the photo, and Joe really tenses up, and we understand, well, I understand because I've seen the movies, that this woman died a while ago, which was in the first movie. This is Lily, the Queen of Southtown, and she was Terry's flame for maybe 10 hours, and she was killed. And that kind of puts a damper on the whole evening, and Joe like just kind of says he's going to turn in, and Sulia gets really awkward about it. And later that night, Terry kind of has this vision of himself while he's looking at this picture of Lily. He says really, really morose things like how, since he lost her, his life's lost all meaning. Keep in mind, listener, he's known this girl for a day, not even a whole day. She dies at the end of that day. And, Sulia's ghost is kind of telling him like, hey, I appreciate it. I like that you miss me, bro, but you need to move on. Like, you knew me for a day. Then Sulia shows up saying, I'm really sorry for ruining dinner. She just wants to know more about Terry. And, Terry, the nice guy that he is, he's like, yeah, well, you ask me all you want and I'll tell you everything tomorrow. The next morning, we get another Indiana Jones scene where they're kind of just doing research at a library, and they find out that the piece that they're looking for is in a part of town that's now at a police station in current day Turkey. And Joe chimes in that they're about a week late because that police station was a part of a terrorist bombing, and they discovered, the underground layer where they were hiding the armor was discovered. And I guess it was just what Joe is saying is that the terrorist bombing is kind of a front for Laucorn and his buddies to get the armor. So even though the police station was bombed and they found the site where the armor was supposed to be, Sulia doesn't think that they actually found it because, as we discover, Sulia and Laucorn, because they're twins, share a really deep connection. So she would have felt him getting another piece of armor if that was indeed what happened. I don't know if this is a coincidence or not, but in another anime that Obari directs, which is Voltage Fighter Gaokaiser, there's another set of twins which also have a deep connection. It's very deep. They're called the Platonic twins because, spoiler alert, they're not platonic. They totally have sex. But yeah, so I don't know if this is that was just a coincidence or that's a theme he likes to play with. But yeah, so essentially Sulia can feel what Laucorn's doing and Laucorn can feel what Sulia's doing. I don't know if we're going to do Gaokaiser because it's very horny and I don't know if we want to cover that, but who knows? We'll see.
What are the upper limits of hornt that we can do on this?
Yeah, how horny on main are we going to be? So they decide to split. Joe tells Terry, hey man, I know that we're splitting up because I'm going to go meet up with Maya and Andy, but you and Sulia are going to go off alone. She likes you, dude. You should kind of go for it. And Terry kind of brushes him off, being oh, she's just a kid, because she's a fucking kid. She's 16.
Oh, the issues.
I know, right? Anyways. So as they depart, we kind of get somebody who we find out is listening to them, and he says, Stroheim Castle. So that's where they're going, and it sounds like someone's got a tail on them. We then get a transition to Iraq, where Maya's taking a shower completely naked. And it turns out her and Andy are kind of sharing a room for the night, which, I mean, they've been together for 10 years, so I don't know why he's being a real virgin about it. So she's like, Andy, we have to share a bed. And Andy just freaks out, starts doing push-ups, and is like, oh, I'm just going to work out and go sleep on the couch. And that's where we get I guess he's kind of relieved that he doesn't have to have sex with this beautiful woman.
Hey, he's saving it for after the sacrament of marriage.
Yeah, he signed that document saying he's going to save his virginity for his true love.
He dared to say no to drugs.
So later that day, Andy and Mai go to the museum where they find that the armor box that should be containing that armor piece is missing, or it's empty. And so they're just like, well, we don't know where this armor is going to be. And they kind of remember that the hieroglyphs in Rhodes show martial arts moves that kind of relate to their own martial arts style. So their logic is that, hey, well, maybe they got a piece of this armor since they learned the fighting style. And so during that, we run into Joe, who kind of lets them know that they kind of ran into the same conclusion, because while Andy and Mai are going to China, Terry and Sulia are going to Germany, right?
Right.
To go, okay, cool. To find the piece that might be in possession of the Krauser estate. We get a weird scene where we see Laucorn saying oh, I can feel my sister is in love and I must meet Terry Bogard, which I don't know if he just kind of felt all of a sudden horny out of nowhere for this blonde guy he's never met.
He was at half-mast all of a sudden.
Yeah, he's rocking a mean chub thinking of Terry Bogard, which can't really blame him,
Don't we all?
Yeah. Don't we all have chubs for Terry Bogard?
So in Germany, we we see Terry and Sulia driving in a motorcycle with like a little sidecar, kind of fun. And when suddenly their fun is interrupted by some energy blasts, which they narrowly escape into a garage, avoiding, like a garage or like a warehouse, kind of some kind of industrial building. And as they're escaping, like even this like Mercedes almost falls on them, which is thrown by Jammin, one of the minions that we saw earlier.
He's the JoJo guy.
He's the big triangle shaped dude. And so Terry and Jammin start fighting, and immediately Terry thinks, like, as they're trading blows, like, this guy is probably tougher than Krauser. And as they fight, Laucorn shows up and he greets them on the roof of this warehouse, and he offers for Terry and Sulia to join him in his quest. And they turn him down, of course. And in retaliation to that, Laucorn strikes Terry, and Jammin joins in too. And Terry fights back a bit, and they're exchanging like special attacks and like those like ground waves, wave moves, the power waves, at each other. But Terry gets blasted back, and Sulia like lashes out at Laucorn and says that he's not her brother, and that he's awful, and that he's become a devil. And so Terry snaps another attack, a power geyser attack his way towards Laucorn to save Sulia. And however, they're both left unscathed. The smoke clears, they're fine. And but that was just enough of a time buying measure for Terry and Sulia to escape into a sewer below this industrial building.
What did you think of that fight scene?
I thought it was pretty decent. Like a little bit of that energy attack back and forth stuff that we love so much. But yeah. I mean, it was brief. It was to the point.
I always like that scene where Jammin's ground waver, I think it's called Earthquaker. It overtakes his power wave, and Terry has like that weird like moment where he's just kind of engulfed in flames, and it's like a weird like side shot. And it kind of focuses on all the parts that get hurt on him. I always thought that was a really cool part.
Yeah, it was a cool. Yeah, you're right. Like that was a cool little like detail shot of it. It's definitely a nice, unique little touch.
Yeah.
And so from here we hop over to a dance club somewhere where Andy and Maya are at, and they're wondering why their master Jubei wanted to meet there of all places. And just as a little side note, as a wrestling fan, there's this random sign in the background that says IWGP, which is the fictional organization that is New Japan Pro Wrestling's like governing body or whatever. So I thought that was a kind of neat little touch of like fighting video game to like sports entertainment fighting.
Is IWGP real at all, or do you mean it's like it's fictional in the NJPW world?
It's they just made up an organization.
Oh, I see.
Didn't share their name, so it sounded like it was an outside body, but yeah. So there's just this little like random sign in this club, so must have been like a little nod to that. So I thought that was pretty neat. So Master Jubei pops in and introduces Maya and Andy to the ladies that he's with at the club, and but Andy's all business, and it was actually kind of funny because he even asks like, he's like, who's this that you're here with? And Andy turns around expecting Maya to be there, and it's another girl.
Yeah, so that's the girl from the scene with Joe,
the voice actress.
Yes, because apparently she's
in a different costume.
Cosplay. Yeah, so that costume, that girl that she's in, or that girl that she's in, that girl that she's dressed as is another SNK character from Samurai Showdown. But in the Japanese version, she does the voice for that character in real life.
So it's one of the kind of completing the circle of this like cameo appearance. And so Maya's gone because she decided to put on a show at this club, and So she just starts singing, and the crowd is like eating it up. Then
they're very horned.
They are very, very horned. And so Andy, he's just trying to he's a very like to the point guy. He's just trying to get info from Master Jubei. But he's just not gonna, like, he's gonna take some badgering to get this. But all of a sudden, Billy Kane, who's another game character, correct?
Hell yeah, dude.
This
Billy
is one
Kane
of the originals.
fucking rules.
He's a cool dude. He seemed aight.
He's got a band. He's cool.
All right. Damn.
And his name is Billy Kane, and he uses a stick. That's cool.
That's pretty cool. I do like my literalism. So he shows up, he starts shit. And Hauer, who, this was an original character. Hauer.
Yes, kind of. Because he is pretty much like, he is original character, but his voice and mannerisms and kind of personality is all Wolfgang Krauser from the second movie. So it's like they just took that character and put him in this movie as somebody else.
So he's the wart to Bowser, if we're going to use video game metaphors here. Uh-huh. He's kind of the serial numbers filed off version. And so this guy, this Hauer guy pops up and interrupts Billy and Andy's fight. So it's like a interruption to an interruption. Mm-hmm. And Hauer actually tries to like get Mai to join his side and like seduce her, but she refuses. And so he kind of like leaves the scene and just like blows everything up to hell. And which prompts Billy to go home to back to his base where Geese Howard is at, and he kind of updates him on the situation with what the other fighters are doing. And so Geese does like a big one of his big special moves, which I'm sure you know the name too. Raging Storm, and he just kind of like blows a huge hole in the ground and says that he's still after Terry. I thought that was like a really cool attack though. Like
it is a really cool attack.
Like, explosion.
Geese Howard
thing.
I've watched a lot of like tool assisted gameplay videos where it's like people doing just perfect inhuman combos with like old KOF games and old Fatal Fury games, and watching Geese do fucking work is just the coolest thing because he's such a cool character and his moveset is so cool looking. Do you play Tekken?
Only a little bit.
Oh, okay. They put Geese Howard in Tekken.
Oh, okay.
He has all of his old kind of combos from the Fatal Fury games in Tekken, and it's like chef's kiss.
Tekken's heyday. I had Nintendo and Sega systems during Tekken's heyday, probably. So I didn't. It was a lot later.
Gotcha.
For me.
Oh, also in this scene with the nightclub, literally everybody that talks in this, or anybody that has a speaking role, is a cameo from a Fatal Fury game. So,
okay.
Yeah, like anybody who's talking has probably been in one of the games.
And so we changed scenes from the nightclub to a very still, dark, and quiet church where Sulia is healing Terry, but it's like not quite enough. Like her regular healing waves or healing energy isn't quite enough, and so she decides she has to release all of her energy at once, which I guess getting to the director's horniness here involves her stripping down to just her bra and underwear and then lying flat on top of Terry. And so she does that. And Terry starts recovering but he also has like these flashbacks to Lily and like when they first met and their time together and when she died, which you're saying was apparently just a very short amount of time.
It's
anyway.
A day. It's like a day and a half, if at most.
I mean, I'm not going to say that don't sting, but damn. Okay. And so he recovers, but now Sulia needs to stay still for a bit. So they basically just have to like cuddle on the on the church floor.
I'm sure Sulia was fine. She just wanted to be cuddled by Terry's big burly arms.
Don't we all want to just fall asleep in those arms?
I mean, I do.
They need to make Terry Bogard arm pillows.
Ooh.
So Sulia opens up a bit. She feels safe in his arms and opens up, tells her tells him her backstory, and basically her father was an archaeologist who found those ancient ruins, and he was actually murdered by a colleague, and this was written off as an accident. And so the colleague was able to take credit for this discovery of all these like ancient ruins. And so this drove her brother mad. And in this rage, he discovered his powers. And so he decided that he would get revenge, and that he would start a search for this armor and like gain the power of the gods. And so Terry, as he's learning this about Sulia, he realizes, like, normally, you know, like we mentioned before, he has that like fighting game protagonist thing of like, every fight is a new challenge and I got to keep fighting and finding new fights and then another fight after that. But he realizes like he doesn't want to fight just for that anymore, but he also wants to protect Sulia.
Aww.
So a little bit of growth.
Aww. It's cute. We then get a scene change to China where Mai is stuck outside of this temple because of misogyny and institutionalized misogyny, and kind of keeping
folks.
Yeah, keeping women out of places of power. And so as she's kind of waiting for Andy at the bottom of this this giant staircase, she gets attacked by Howard, and he just happens to tear her dress with the power of air. And Mai does a quick change without, unlike Kim, she's totally naked under her clothes. So we see all that. But by then we've seen everything. And she starts to fight, and she actually kind of gets the upper hand on Howard and does like, some of her signature moves on him. But then I guess Howard kind of gets serious, and she kind of realizes like, oh yeah, I can't take this guy. Because of the scuffle Andy hears happening down there, he rushes to help. And by then Howard's already got Mai hostage, and he says like, hey, if you don't give me that armor, I'm going to kill your girlfriend. So Andy tries to fight back a little bit, but he kind of gets his ass kicked, and Howard tries to kiss Mai. So it's really kind of like, insult and injury for Andy here. And we kind of see why he's not feeling too good about this afterwards. But afterwards he's kind of just like left in the rain because he's kind of like on the ground, and Mai's kind of trying to comfort him. And we get a scene change to Germany where the one pant-legged ninja that works for Laukorn is Penny?
Penny?
Penny? I don't know.
Pani?
I just always called her like the one-legged ninja girl. She is sneaking around the castle, and she runs into Lawrence Blood, who is a sub-boss from the video games. If you can't tell, he's Spanish because he happens to be a matador under his clothes.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. Or a Labrador under our clothes. Like you. Sorry, I'll edit that out. It's fine.
It's too good.
So she gets into a scuffle with Lawrence, and he thinks that he's got her beat, but turns out she can control water, and essentially just like kills him. Because it appears that there is a breastplate in possession by the Krauser family, because she saw it in one of the paintings. And after the fight, we kind of see Joe show up, who is too late, and at the same time, Terry and Sulia also show up. So it's all kind of, kind of convenient that they all kind of showed up here, but just like an hour late. And Sulia screams out in pain because she's confirming to them like, yeah, he got the armor piece that was here. And she feels really guilty because she hasn't like been a real help to them. Like, yeah, she's leading him in the right directions, but he's still getting these armor pieces, and it's not helping at all.
One step ahead.
After the group meets up again to kind of like give each other the assessment of what happened, everyone's feeling kind of really dejected. Andy's not feeling particularly good. But they have no other clues, so they end up back in Rhodes. And they're kind of talking about it there, and in frustration, Joe hits a wall and just happens to kind of show this panel with a little indentation in it, which just happens to fit Sulia's pennant that she's wearing, and it's all very Indiana Jones. Like the pennant shows a laser on a map. You, and apparently the last piece is in the Dead Sea in Israel. So yeah, very Indiana Jones. And we kind of see that Laucorn's minions are also moving because, they've only got one piece left. We then get to a hotel in Jerusalem because everyone's just jumping all over the place. And Sulia and Mai are talking about, the relationship between Mai and Andy. And Mai thinks that Sulia had sex with Terry. And, they're just kind of having, it's girl talks. Andy's in the woods by himself punching a tree. What were you saying last time? Like it was like a teen hitting drywall.
Yeah, that's his version of like punching drywall on frustration.
He's just punching trees.
Punching trees.
Andy and Joe are just getting drunk, sharing a bottle of scotch, and Mai has mentioned that Terry looks at Sulia in a very special way. Like she's never seen that look in Terry's eyes, and she reveals to Sulia that the whole backstory with Lily. And as Joe and Terry are getting drunk and watching the girls, they pass out because it seems like Hauer has taken all the air out of the room. And this is where Sulia and Mai get attacked by the said crew. And Jammin apparently has teleportation powers because he can turn into a giant column of flame and just take Sulia away. And so they start to fight. It's pretty much 2-on-1 because it's Penny and Hauer against Mai until Andy shows up. And apparently punching trees works because now he's able to just kick their asses like it's no problem at all. And afterwards, Andy and Mai share a sweet embrace after they've just killed 2 people and lost a girl. So, a real victorious moment for those 2, apparently.
It's like that scene in Watchmen where they Night Owl and Silk Spectre they get their rocks off on beating up thugs.
Those poor top knots.
So after all this, Sulia wakes up in a helicopter where Laucorn catches her up on his plan and even offers, I'll become this like evil god, but you can keep the pendant when I'm done with it. So, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
But suddenly, like, they're still in this helicopter, but suddenly, like, Laucorn senses that the final seal has been released on the last piece of armor, and so on the ground as they arrive, Jammin presents this last piece to Laucorn, and they summon these ruins from beneath the Dead Sea, which rise up suddenly. And it's like this temple complex. It looks really cool. It's like this like Greco-Roman style temple complex that rises up. Just as this is happening, Terry and company, they arrive, but they're immediately assaulted by ninjas, the standard obstacle of this film. And but what Mai does is tells the boys to go along, or tells Terry to go along while the others, while her and the others deal with the ninjas. And so Terry runs up a flight of stairs to the temple, and he encounters Jammin first. And they exchange some blows, and they exchange some of their special moves, that like burn knuckle and boost knuckle, respectively. Mm-hmm. And Terry ultimately like overpowers Jammin, who he kind of like they do like the little like energy clash with each other, and Terry's energy wave overpowers Jammin's, but he reveals that he let himself get overtaken by it because the clash would have killed both of them, and he still needs Terry alive, and basically tells him like, it's up to you to save Laucorn now, like just ominously, like, see, I'm not like tricking you, like you need to save Laucorn, like this is important for the world.
See, I would argue that it'd probably be easier and better if he just said, hey, I'll help you save Laucorn, instead of just like, I'll just kill myself. Like,
So some
maybe he just
folks
loves
are
Laucorn
just
too much, and he just can't.
yeah.
You know. But hey,
Jamin is
sometimes you need tough love.
he's just a poor communicator, and I
mean, aren't a lot of us?
I think we could all learn a little from about opening up how we're really feeling. You know,
From the tragedy that is Jamin.
if only he had gone to therapy.
And
So
not used
Sulia-
Laucorn as therapy, like a problematic person.
Hey, there we go.
Anyways,
And on
please
our
keep
next
going.
episode of relationship dynamics in anime,
Ooh. We need to start a Patreon for that.
so Sulia and Laucorn, deeper in the temple complex, they approach this really cool looking but like creepy red statue, and Laucorn launches into this speech about how he's going to get vengeance for his country, and so he's just so angry at what's happened to their predecessors, and this will be his legacy and all that. And Sulia points out the whole eye for an eye thing that he's getting himself into. As soon as you get revenge, someone else is going to want to get revenge on you. But as they're having this conversation, Terry runs in, and he can't quite stop Laucorn from putting on the last piece. So the armor starts to glow, and it starts to change, and kind of like in the beginning when he put on that first piece, and it kind of like conforms to him and looks a lot more like bioorganic. And I thought this was really cool. Like the skies outside start turning red. It was very like I'm a big comic book fan. It was very reminiscent of like Crisis on Infinite Earths and all the other crisis events in DC Comics where the skies turn red and like there's like red lightning and black clouds, and it just looks like hellish. And so Laucorn starts to transform and become like bigger and buffer and stronger, and absolutely just like demolishes Terry. He hits him once, and Terry coughs up blood. And Laucorn goes into this speech about how he's transcending his limits, and as he goes in for like a killing blow, Andy and the rest of the crew manage to knock him away from Terry. But even with everybody, everybody starts taking him on. But even with that, like Laucorn is still dominating the 4 versus 1 fight, and so, or 3 versus 1 because Terry's on the ground. But as Terry starts to recover, Mai and Sulia, he tells them that he's gonna help Laucorn come back to normal. He's gonna take on that task that Jamin tasked him with. And so this time, it's Terry that saves Joe from a really big hit, and all of them decide to square up with Laucorn basically and take them all on at once. And
it's clear that the budget was spent here, because this is clearly like the best animated scene in the entire movie. Like
the art direction, the lighting, the use of light in this, like everything looks a lot better.
It's much better than that fight scene in the arcade.
I did love that. So like Terry uses this attack, the screw upper.
No, that's Joe.
Or Joe. Great name. Oh man.
Yeah, Joe kicks ass, man.
Oh. And so they as they continue fighting, we see Sulia, and she's actually hurting herself. And this reveals that by hurting herself, she can actually weaken Laucorn. And so Laucorn is going to blast her to stop her from hurting herself, which like...
Yeah, that makes sense.
What's the logic here? But maybe it works differently when it's him hurting her or something. I don't know. Maybe, there's a logic.
Or it's a plot hole.
Or it's a plot hole. I don't know. I just want to get my no prize. Terry gets in the way of that blast and prevents this. And so having saved her, Sulia then plunges the dagger right into her heart and tells Terry to finish it by hitting Laucorn right in the breastplate of the armor. So Laucorn gloats because he's he's hurt, he's weakened, but not fully, and he'll be back to full power. Implicitly, but Terry tells him that he's going to show him humanity's true potential. and he does a burn knuckle attack like right into Laucorn's chest, and so the armor basically like vanishes off of Laucorn. It was kind of a cool effect too, but like some parts fall off onto the floor, and they almost kind of like drip and melt into the floor. And
it's like the T-1000
in a moment, but yeah, like that happens. But these pieces drop, and Laucorn's voice kind of changes to normal, and like you could tell his like personality. Normal? Yeah, well, he pulls a Yu-Gi-Oh and has his kid voice. And you can tell like his personality, like everything, his demeanor, personality, everything changes. And he's overcome with like a sudden guilt for all these things he's done. And as Sulia bids farewell to everybody, Terry is holding her close, and she apologizes for all the awful things that had to be done in order for this, end game. And Terry gets really sad that this is basically the fate of every woman he loves, but I mean, pretty small sample size too.
Small sample size. Yes, 100%.
I don't want to bring the scientific.
But I mean, to be fair though, pretty small sample size. But he's also 0 for 2. So
yeah, he's also in the like beating the shit out of each other industry, and that might not be the best place to meet. He's got to meet people outside of the office.
Like go to like a spin class or something.
Yeah, yoga. Like, come on. Get on one of the apps.
Yeah, you can't really. Yeah, you can't really meet people, fighting on the streets.
I don't know. I think love can bloom on the battlefield.
Oh, you can it? Thank you, Sniper Wolf. Or no, thank you, Hal.
So the armor that had fallen off of
fuck you,
Laucorn. It does the T-1000, like the cool like T-1000 effect we were saying earlier, and it melts. It's kind of cool. Like it melts through between the tiles. Like it melts in between the tiles and like travels really fast to that creepy red statue from earlier, and merges with it, and it like takes the form of Mars, the god of war. And so the group takes on this like new armor construct being thing, and as Terry lays Sulia down, and he starts to glow in a blue light, and
with a single tear.
That's all it takes is one tear. And he just basically goes all like hyper mode, Super Saiyan. He turns
into a Dragon Ball Z character.
Yes. Yeah, very very Ultra Instinct. He starts attempting to beat the shit out of Mars, but then gets blasted back, and he gets one last word of encouragement from Sulia, like in his mind, in his heart, and counterattacks Mars with like a huge boost knuckle attack. Like this was like the biggest attack in the whole thing. It was pretty cool looking, and just like obliterates it entirely. And we flash to white, and as we return, we see everyone's outside of the temple, which is like ruins now, and Mai asks, "It's finally over," and Terry just kind of agrees. And as they walk off, Terry looks back at the camera one more time and throws his hat behind him, which I'm told is a pretty significant gesture.
That's his end of fight like fanfare. Like every time he wins, he just takes his hat and throws it, and he goes, "Okay."
His little winning pose.
Yeah, that's his win pose.
That's great. Yeah. So,
but this is a very somber one because he just lost someone very close to him. Yeah. But he still won.
They walk off into the distance to find new adventures. And
what do you think of the greatest song in any anime?
Oh ever? God! So that ending theme, "Dawn of a Legend," performed by Kazukiyo Nishikiori, then followed by the English cover version, "Oh Angel," by Canadian artist Warren Stanier. Fucking rips.
This song kicks ass.
I unironically love this.
It's song. So stupid. It's like...
I love my silly, glammy, cheesy, hair rock. This is that distilled.
It's like if Warren wanted to do like a ballad. Yeah. Like it's so over the top in like late 80s, early 90s. It's so great. Like Kiss without the makeup on.
Yeah, this is pure like Cinderella or something. Like it's great.
Yeah, no, I still listen to "Oh Angel" all the fucking time. I mean, let's not go crazy. Not all the time, but I listen to it like a few times a year.
Yeah, it's very you don't know what you got till it's gone. That classic.
Until it's gone.
Same
Or
vibes.
it's like, what's that? What's the October Rain or September Rain?
Oh, November Rain.
November Rain.
GNR.
GNR. With that tiny little church. Yeah. So Jorge, what were your thoughts on this movie?
I really enjoyed it. It lost me at times, I think, just because I really like the globetrotting stuff. I like the fight scenes, but there's stuff just in between. I think the transitions weren't great.
Right.
But
they're kind of jarring, yeah.
Yeah. And not being familiar with the characters and not having watched the previous two and not knowing that those two things were tied in until I was doing the research on this. I might have been better served by watching them, even as just like research toward this episode. But I think overall, like, it was good, and watching those other episodes or playing some of the games or something will only serve to make it better from there. So
yes.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. How about you?
Well, I mean, I love this movie. Like, this is like, it doesn't deserve to be in it because it's obviously it's not the best anime. It's very schlocky, but it's probably like top 10 personally for me. However, watching it with like a critical focus, I did realize that it did kind of run long in some parts. Like, and because I like it so much, I don't think it ran long, but kind of considering that we just had Arcadia of My Youth as the last episode where that movie fucking just dragged on. I did definitely notice, like, it was definitely in my mind to kind of notice if there were parts here that would have been dragging on as well. Because, I mean, the movie's, like, feature length, but there's not a lot of substance to it. It's only, like, 3 fights before the main fight?
Yeah, it's only about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But, again, like, there's three fights. That's a fight every half hour.
Yeah, and the fights are not long. They're quick little, 10-second fights. So, I think it did definitely run long, and the fact that the transitions weren't the best definitely take you out of take you out of it a little bit, just because you're just sort of like, wait, who's going where? Why are they doing this now? Like, that kind of takes away from the movie, but I still love it. It's such a not even a guilty, it's just a pleasure for me. So, I thought it was good. So you've never seen this before, or you saw it very early? Like, do you think it held up from when you saw it as a kid?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't retain a lot. So the scene that I did remember pretty vividly was that damn shower sequence. So I think you could probably ascertain what age I watched this at. But yeah, I think overall it held up. I definitely recommend it to somebody who is like into any of any fighting anime or video game adaptations.
Yeah, like if you know somebody who likes fighting games, you definitely make them watch this. So as you know, Jorge, with every episode we do a body pillow rating system. Kind of just wondering where this episode, or I should say this film, stood with you. So on a scale of 1 to 5 Terry Bogard body pillows, what would you give Fatal Fury the motion picture?
I'm gonna have to give it 3. I definitely think it's above average. It's good. I inch towards that half, but I do think it's just shy of not making it. But yeah, so I'm gonna have to give it 3 Terry Bogard pillows.
You bastard, you're dead to me.
Did I just screw up this friendship?
Oh God, go to hell. I'm stopping recording.
Mic drop.
Yeah. No, yeah. No, I mean, I get it. I totally get it. It's, especially if you don't have the kind of relationship with it like I do, or like anybody that, likes the series or the characters, I get
this
it.
This is a Capcom town, boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just some guys in the back smashing up like a Neo Geo machine.
They're smashing a car. Yeah. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Like, it does kind of run long at points, and it's not perfect. So I mean, I totally agree with a 3. I think me personally though, I'm going to go with a 4. And it's just because I love the characters. I love the art style. I love the movie. It's not a 5. So, I'm not going to go that far with it, but yeah, it's definitely a 4 for me.
I give your giving a 4 a 5.
Oh, thanks, bro.
Because I think it's really sweet that you had this relationship with these characters and all that, and we got to check them out.
Yeah, I don't know art, but I know what I like. And what I like is big jiggly anime titties. So yeah, that's it for the show, guys. If you like it, please give us a like or a follow, depending on what you listen to your podcasts on. If you'd like to recommend something to us, we will take any recommendation you give us if you just leave us a 5-star rating on Apple iTunes. But if you get it from Spotify, give us a follow. If you want to find us on social media, we are on Instagram and Twitter, both at Aging Otakus. And if you want to, I don't know how I feel about a Facebook, Jorge. We could talk about this at another time, but
yeah, do either of us have Facebook accounts?
I do not have a Facebook account, and I never will.
I used to. I no longer it was doing nothing in my life anymore. So,
but think of the impressions we'll get if we're on a Facebook group. Oh. We could talk with all those people with anime avatars and Q and things like that. I do
wanna spread lies about anime. Consider it.
I love
convince
anime
us
misinformation.
Convince us, beloved fans.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. Jorge, where can they find you?
So on Twitter, new handle alert. You could find me
what?
At List of Heckles. Same old account, exciting new name.
I was not aware of this.
Well, I don't think it alerts anyone or whatever, but yeah, new same account, but new name, new handle. I reserved my other handle for copywriting, professional BS.
Makes more sense.
So, if you're interested in learning about content and what it could do for you, you could follow me at my name. But if you want the shit posts, you can follow me at List of Heckles. If you want all that rich organic SEO, if you'd like to find me, I'm on Twitter at chambray_poppy, PAPI, like dad in Spanish. And you can find me posting a lot of I don't know, let's see what I posted recently. Mostly a lot of leftist retweets. And Goldberg apparently playing basketball against some kid. Or not Goldberg, Gold Dust, sorry. Both worth either option worth watching, I should say. Who's better at hooping you up though? Goldberg or Gold Dust? I feel like Gold Dust would be like feeling up the ball for a while. Yeah, and it's gonna hit you with a Shattered Dreams when you're trying to get a jump shot in. But yeah, guys, that's the show. Tune in next week. We'll be covering another anime, which we will update you with on our Twitter. But until then, I guess take it easy. Bye.